what I think we have to do is activate our neighborhoods.
I like that.
Right?
Yeah.
And you and I, who have access to a lot of services, we can kind of leaders in our neighborhoods and say, hey, that person down the street, instead of calling the cops on that person who just pitched a tent in the park right down the street, why don't we find out their name and find out what they need?
Yeah.
So we can be leaders in that kind of response. That kind of response is essentially free.
Hi friends, welcome to PLK Talks. This is DJ, your host and CEO and founder of Peace, Love, Knowledge. So this is our first episode, and today's guest is somebody who's been so supportive of PLK, and I'm so excited to have on our first episode. He is a founder and executive director of Secondgrace.La. He is a board member at SELA. He is a new member with Better Angels. He is a houseless advocate, and he's experienced it himself. And I want to welcome to you guys today, Paul Asplund. I want to thank you again for coming on short notice, being flexible into our first episode with PLK Talks, where we can shine light on organizations like yourself that are doing amazing work. But for people that don't know you, I would love for you to introduce yourself, tell us about yourself, what you do, and go ahead. Take it away.
This is always the point where I say, Paul and I'm not that. So I started my journey working around homelessness 10 years ago. And I had a whole different career, a whole different life. I moved to San Francisco and was stepping over people every morning on my way to whatever I was doing. I got invited on the boards of a couple of nonprofits, and I was working with them. And I started working with a hospitality house actually in San Francisco, started working on a music program. I'm a big music fan, and I was on the board of this music group. We spent 12 weeks doing these classes with these people, and we then had a live performance, right? And it just lit me up. And it was that moment of like, I finally discovered what I was supposed to do when I grew up, right? I had plenty of jobs, many careers, all those things, but it was that nothing ever really fit until this. And at about that same time, I picked up the paper, and there was an article on iPad. There was an article at SF Gate where this woman had put these buses, she took these muni buses and turned them into shower trailers, or shower, put them out on the streets. And she was being interviewed, and she said, it's not about the shower, it's about the dignity. And just the bells went off in my head. I wrote to her and I said, look, I am that person you're talking about, the one who took the shower this morning, 25 years later. When I was young, I was homeless. And it wasn't about the services that were around me, it was about the dignity and the community that brought me back. Wow. And she was probably the first person outside of my close group of friends who I ever told about my experience. Because I was ashamed, right? I was just ashamed of being homeless. I just, I was a 26-year-old drug addict on the streets, and I had every opportunity to not be that person. That's who I was, right?
At the time.
At the time, right? Well, that's who I was, and the county I lived in cut off my food stamps and my general assistance, and they said, if you want them back, you can go to a 28-day outpatient treatment program. And I'm like, I can do anything for 28 days. So I went to this outpatient treatment program, and in the midst of it, I was struck sober, which my definition is I did not want it. I did not, but the desire to use was gone. Yeah. What happened after that is it took 2 years for me to get my feet on the ground. I got a job as a night security guard at a hotel, and my qualification is that I'm a big guy, right? That was my job. 2 years later, I bought my first house. 5 years later, I'm an executive, right? And then I'm living in LA 5 years after that, right? So everything took off for me. But that is a little bit about, it was that whole story I just erased, just forgot, because I thought if I told anybody I'd been homeless, they would judge me.
Right.
Because I judged me.
Yeah.
And I knew that they would not give me the opportunities, right? And I had great opportunities, man. I've had some amazing jobs and a great, really, really fun work. And that's a very long answer, to your introduction of myself, but my experience that brought me here in 2014, right, in San Francisco, started a 10-year journey that has been the best time of my life.
Well, so this, I'm guessing, is Lava Me, right?
Yes,
is what
Lava
it,
Me,
exactly.
yes.
Right.
So
that's something that I highlight. You came from, well, because we met for going into the houses community.
Yeah.
You have that experience, but you've come so far within the title range, but also with the impact that you're doing for this community, giving back as someone who's experienced it. So I would love to hear about how you are, what your presence is right now in the houses community, outside of Second Grace.
Sure. So right now I just started working with this group called Better Angels. A long story of how we met, but Better Angels is fairly new, within the past year and a half, and they brought me on board to increase their footprint in these events that I started doing with Lava May. These pop-up care events, right? You and I worked together, that's where we met, right? It's an event like this, and I've done little ones when we developed this program at Lava May in San Francisco, based on a huge event that happened here in LA called the Skid Row Carnival of Love. After I left Lava May, I went and ran the Skid Row Carnival of Love. And that was 100 partners, 4,000 guests, 2,000 volunteers, massive one-day event on Skid Row. And now I'm doing the small ones again, and small ones across the whole county, with the goal of doing 16 a month. So essentially 2 in every spot. Right? With partners from every spot. Our job is not to show up like a road show and do our thing and leave. Our job is to go into a neighborhood and help them build community, right? Give them a focal point to all come together. The people who are already there doing the work, we're just giving them another focal point to come together, and we'll do. So we'll organize it. We do, and we do some promotion, and we bring in all the elements that we can. It's a really fun. I mean, this is what I love.
Right.
It's built for me. So that's what I love.
It's so impactful how we met. This is why I wanted you the first person. You were so supportive of DLK. I remember you're like, I emailed you like every day of the week so I can come on with Lava May. And you've been so supportive with showing that because it's so hard to get space, retail space in LA specifically, a foundational space for PLK or any organization, you kind of helped me show me the ropes of the importance of just popping up on the streets and what street vendors do on the daily. And what organizations are now doing so that we're able to provide resources, we're able to be there of service for the community, because these organizations that are out there on the streets are so overcrowded. The growth of the homeless community has grown so much, especially with COVID and stuff, and I don't see that being parallel with the growth of these organizations. So these pop-up things I think are so important, and I don't know what's going to happen with them. I don't know if this is going to be the new era of stuff now, or because retail space is so expensive, but the importance is amazing.
Yeah, thank you. And it's that, again, going back to Lava May, and Donice was very clear, she's the founder of Lava May, that it's about being out on the street with people. That is where the magic happens, and that's why I keep doing it. Because the relationships I've built with people I've met on the streets, having their worst day of their life the morning that I meet them, have been the most rewarding relationships I've ever had.
Right.
Because when the light comes on, when the decision is made to change, and I'm there with them, and I can bring something, right? I can send them to I send them to you, right? I can find somebody else. What's the next thing that's right for them in that moment? And you can't find that when you give somebody an appointment 2 weeks from now. Right? That's a very hard one to manage when people's lives are all over the place, right? They may not even be in the same neighborhood 2 weeks from now. But if we can be with people where they are, when the moment comes that they want to change, when they feel that agency, we keep bringing that, and we try to build that dignity in that relationship. And they feel that. They're welcome back. They're loved. They're appreciated. I know their name. They might even know mine, right? It's like that kind of relationship and that respect that we have, and that being there with all of those resources. So even though it's me, I know 100 people, right? I know 100 different resources that I can send somebody to, kind of a concierge style, and we train all of our staffs to be concierge. Like you're on the street, representing every service in the city and county of Los Angeles.
Wow.
Know them.
Right.
Right? And then we spend all this time researching them and having all this information about them so that we can access it quickly and building those relationships. So I can call somebody and not just call the front desk of a place, but I can call somebody I know inside and say, I have a warm handoff, right? I have somebody you need to meet, somebody who needs you.
Right.
And that is the magic.
Right.
And I think it's the only way we're going to accelerate enough people's lives to at least, I don't know if solving homelessness is a practical goal. I just don't know. Since you and I met, remember it was like 100 people a day were losing their housing in LA.
Yeah.
Now it's 220 people a day.
Right.
Yeah, 220 people a day lose their housing in LA.
Yes.
81,000 people a year.
Yeah.
Right? The system is already overwhelmed, and then there are more people coming in, and you see it whenever you see the tents pop up in your neighborhood. Imagine how many tents it takes to hold 225 people every day. If they don't have cars to move into, which they probably will lose at some point, and then move on to the streets.
They've even seen that too. People living in their cars or RVs, that is becoming a thing as well.
It's huge.
Everything that's with people not having an actual roof over their head is becoming so overwhelming.
Yeah.
But going into like how we are helping people on the streets, the importance of it, it's really, like you said, that personal touch is so important to have, because I don't want to name point any organizations, but my experience with going into different organizations, they're just overwhelmed. You're just a statistic. If they can't get you on their little checklist for funding purposes, you're out the door and you're not really helped fully. So when we did our pop-up services, just with Lava May and whoever you guys had on there, it was that personal handoff. And we tried to close the gap as much as we can. I never say resume writing, getting a job is going to end homelessness. It's being a resource for them.
Right.
Every community should have the proper resources and services so that everyone's thriving.
Right.
Skid Row Carnival Love was, oh my God, I loved it because it was literally a full circle of services for that person. You just walk in and it's like entertainment, resources, services, direct hands off, or just at least names and numbers to get you closer to what you need.
Yep.
And now you're doing that. I don't want to say smaller level because it's still impactful, but you're doing it twice a month, right?
Well, right now we're 3 times a month.
3 times a month.
By, let's say, November, we'll be 16 times a month.
Oh my gosh.
Right?
Wow.
So, and even that is not enough, but that's a reasonable goal. That's a reachable goal for my team.
Yeah.
Right? We have the resources to do that, 2 in each spa. And there are 8 service planning areas for your guests who don't know, or sorry, your listeners who don't know.
Yeah.
So we will work with partners all across the county.
Okay.
And bring these events there all across the county.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we can kind of go a little bit now into your app that you started with Secondgrace.La. We're going with Secondgrace.La, the organization that you started, because I feel it's so relevant right now of how we're trying to close that gap for resources for homeless people.
Sure.
So if you want to talk about it, please go ahead. Introduce it for everybody.
Thank you. So Secondgrace.La, I started in response to a problem or a series of problems that I kept encountering everywhere that I went.
Right.
And that is, by the way we are funded and the lack of time we have and the size, like we're super small organizations, high impact, really small.
Right.
Low overhead, no administrative people. We're just out there doing the work, and then we go home and answer the emails and pass out. Then we show up and do the work the next day, right?
Yes.
It's that we don't have people to apply for grants for us. We don't have people to write the reports to the funders. We're just out there doing the work and asking people to support us however they can. One of the problems is siloing communications.
Yeah.
That I'll pick up my phone and in the course of the day, I'll work with Signal, Messages, Instagram, what's the one that not Steam, but there's another one that gamers use that's very popular. So there are all these different applications, right, that we can use to talk to each other.
Yes.
So I'll have 4 or 5, I don't even remember where the conversations are happening, right? And I've got my email to handle. So I'm trying to coordinate with organizations that are doing communications within their own little groups. And it's an organic thing for us to do, right? The most technologically savvy person in any nonprofit is going to lead, right? And Discord is the one I'm thinking of.
Oh, okay.
So if they're young people and they use Discord for the gaming,
Okay.
right? They're going to use Discord for their nonprofit. So we're not able to talk to each other.
Yeah.
So I created this community that's one communication platform. It's free, right? Everybody can sign up. You can join for free, you can post your events, you can do volunteer recruitment, you can do all those things there. And I've included a map of resources at the county.
Yeah.
So, right, a map I've been developing since I came to LA in 2017, came back from San Francisco. So, I was trying to create a space where people could come, and also a community for us.
Right.
So not just a resource for finding other resources, but a place where you and I could come and chat and say, well, I just had a really rough day, and I bandaged somebody's wound that should have been done at the hospital, right? Which is something we do.
Yeah.
You know, you're in your triage, right? We are doing things we are not qualified to do and ought not to be doing, but we need to do, because it's, we're treating human beings and they have trouble.
Right.
So that kind of thing, or you had a rough day, or it's 105 degrees outside and you're just wiped out, and you want to just laugh with somebody. So it's a community where we can talk to each other.
Right.
And have some mental health resources. And I post a bunch of stuff from the Greater Good and from On Being, my favorite podcast ever, and those kinds of things. So you can look and see an article that might inspire you or something that lifts you up, right? So I wanted that to be available to people, and it's something I knew how to do.
Yeah.
It's not rocket science, right? It's community building.
It kind of is. I mean, I think you're undermining your app a little bit, because my experience with it is like, this is what I needed since day one when I came out to Skid Row, just understanding what is going on. 2016, almost 8 years ago, I was like, why are we not talking to each other? Yeah. Like, why is you're going to this organization, I almost said a name, if you're going to this organization, why aren't you referring them to here? Right. When you don't offer that services? Why is it a competition when we're in the hospitality department? Yeah. I didn't understand that. Yeah. And so I tried to partner with them to try to bridge a gap, but it's so like, there in your face that like, we're only here for funding and a job. I want to say 50%, I'm giving a nice number, because it's a big number, that where it's just people are there not to be of service. And your app is highlighting the people like me who don't get the big grants and the big funding because we're not qualified enough, even though we have 8 years of work under our belts. Right. And the change and success stories, it's still never enough for, you need to have $1 million budget already when you come to LA. Right. But your app is there for me to communicate with all the different resources, but like you said, a handoff. It's not the front desk, it's someone directly. Right. So user friendly. Thank you. So you literally open your Google Maps and it has all the resources of different organizations there. So you're undermining how cool of a creation you made. Thank you. And you're right, why wasn't LA doing this? Well, and I think the idea has been there. I mean, I obviously didn't come up with this idea, right? Obviously, but it's the audience has always been thought of a little wrong. People have been approaching me since San Francisco, the app capital. People have been approaching me and saying, "Look at this cool app, I can." And it's like, that's great for me, and that's great for you, but if I'm on the street, one, I don't have a smartphone. Right. Great chance of. I won't have a smartphone. So this is not for the people you think it's for. Yeah. Right? You've missed that last mile of considering, of going out and actually asking people what they need. Yep. And then bringing that to them. Right. You have all these great ideas. And this kind of falls in the same area of the people in those big organizations we are not naming, but talking about. They're the best people you ever want to meet. Yeah. The people who go into our line of work professionally, who go and get the degrees, they come out as, they're the loveliest people, their heart is in the right place, they want to give their life to helping. Yes. Then they go into an organization that beats them up. Yeah. Because, and not. It's the paperwork.
It's the paperwork.
That
It
is
is
that.
the overwhelming number of people that are coming into the system.
Yeah.
And if you're doing the case management work, if you're doing the
Yeah.
work, you are getting beat up, and your people you're working with are leaving and moving, and then take it on the other side from the customer, the guest side. Their contact inside that organization changes often, too often. So they'll build a wonderful relationship with somebody they really like, and then the next person is replaced. They may not like that as much, and they may get dropped through the cracks, and they may not get the call back that they were promised from somebody else, and we disillusion people instead of treating them like precious guests,
Right.
right?
Right.
People who are in need, and we have what they need,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
We pay more attention to the reporting structure behind us, and the funding that comes down from HUD, and all of the programmatic requirements of our job, and we don't deliver the service that is so needed out to the person
Right.
who's in need.
Right.
This is where I see all of the little organizations, and little organizations I include mom and pops and faith communities.
Mm-hmm.
I think faith communities do the majority of lifting in that world that's below the LASA, right? They really, really are deep in the communities, and they do a lot of.
Right.
They're also not coordinated.
Yeah.
Right? They're also, even though they're talking, they're still working in individual, and there's funding issues with all the way the spas are funded, and all these things that keep us apart. So the ideal partner, right, is somebody who's funded for the whole county, who has access to enough funding to keep them, growing and providing the service, and is not encumbered by having to have a whole staff of administrators
Right.
that keep them, I don't want to say on track, but keep them from innovating.
Yeah.
There's human-centered design, this idea that when you create a service organization, you go out to the people you intend to serve and ask them what they need. Then you go back and create the organization.
Right.
And then you launch it, and then you ask them what they need again, and then you reiterate, and that's built in. You should be surveying your guests, customers, clients every few months.
Right.
What are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? What needs to change? What do you need?
Right.
And then we reiterate, right?
Right.
When you have a program that comes down from the top, that's designed by ultra brilliant school people that come out with these ideas, and it's so well thought out, but it's not responsive to the needs of.
On paper, it looks good.
It's responsive to the needs of the people who created it and their bosses and their bosses. Everybody looks like they're doing their jobs.
Right.
But when it gets down to the front line, it falls apart. It's that last mile thing again.
Yes.
Because the reality of it, and I could tell horror stories about Inside Safe. I had horror stories reported to me about Inside Safe, and I hate to have to say that, but the way it was executed, great idea, wonderful. When it works,
I fell for it.
But there are some horror stories.
Oh shoot.
And some of this, we have this conversation a lot. Huge organizing principle of all of what we do is housing first. The idea that housing first.
Okay.
Right? It is meeting people where they are, housing them first, and then bringing them the services. The whole system is designed for housing first, and this was a brilliant concept. I think it first came up, it was codified in the 70s. This brilliant guy was like, we've got to do this. This is the way to deliver the services by stabilizing people in their housing so we can get to them, know where they are, bring them what they need, keep them current on all of their paperwork and their medications and their doctor visits and all the different things that right, but we have to get them housed first.
Okay.
So everybody loves this idea. Everybody talks about housing first. We don't have the housing.
I was just gonna say, what?
We need 500,000 units of housing in LA alone.
Right.
500,000 units, and I think that's just 500,000 market rate units, just to meet the current demand
Wow.
and release a little bit of the pressure on our rental,
Wow.
right? And on our whole housing market. 'Cause
Yeah.
Everything's crazy.
Yeah.
So 500,000 just to start, and then we need to start creating spaces for people who can't afford
Right.
market rate housing.
Right.
And this makes the whole thing untenable. And no matter how good your intention is going in, and again, I'm just an opinionated amateur, so.
No.
But no matter how good your intention is going in, you're going to fumble, you're going to drop it because you don't have the resource you need, which is the housing.
Yes, I was just gonna say, this idea you said was made in the 70s?
Yeah, I think it was the 70s, yeah.
That's like a different time. Things were different then. Now we're in 2024 with this crazy economy.
Yeah.
What are we doing? This should have been prevented. This should have been
prevented.
like how you're saying. You go back and you look at your community. What do you need?
Yeah.
You keep servicing, and that's where I'm so confused with LA County with why isn't that happening? You know what I mean? Like, where is preventative? Where is the growth in that?
Yeah.
And I see things when I see like the LA budget, and a lot of it's going to like the police, which I don't want to talk bad about that.
Yeah.
You know, because I want my protection sometimes.
Right.
But
Yeah.
at the same time, the protection we are getting is not protection. It's just like crazy, aggressive.
Yeah.
It's not really community patrol, security patrol type of setting.
And it punishes people for circumstances that are beyond their control.
Right.
And this is the hardest thing that I deal with on a human to human level.
Yeah.
Is saying to people, I'm sorry the system is set up like this for you.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
There's a great quote, and I can't remember who said it. I'm sure I heard it on Being at some point. But this person said, when are we going to stop judging people for how they appear and honor them for what they've endured?
Right.
And I heard that, and I'm like, yes, this is it.
Yeah.
I can look at you and have all sorts of opinions about who you are in this moment, right?
Right.
But I don't know your story.
Yeah.
And nobody grew up wanting to be homeless. That was nobody's vision board. Right?
Yes.
So the circumstances that bring people to being unhoused and food insecure, which
Right.
20% of people in LA County, is that right? Food insecurity? That's huge.
Yeah.
Right? Huge.
That's a huge problem. I
Huge
had no
problem.
idea.
750,000 people are on the verge of losing their housing at any moment in LA County. How many people are food insecure? And we're a very strange food. We don't grow any food in LA County.
We're
We have
food
10 million.
deserts.
We're food, right.
Yeah.
And food deserts inside of a giant food desert. We have 10 million people here, and our food is all grown hundreds of miles away and shipped into us.
Right.
Right? We don't grow food here. It's not a good use of investment for
Yeah.
land.
Yeah.
development.
Just coming here to
So,
Compton,
Yeah.
I didn't realize it's such a food desert.
Yeah.
That I had no idea that was an issue. So that's what I mean. There's just every community has their different issues.
Yeah.
And what are the members, people in the court offices or in that type of realm doing to support their communities? Who have that power to? And I think there's places like where you and I met, like La de May, the Skid Row Carnival of Love,
Right.
Secondgrace.La. There's people who are actually on the ground doing the work, and we're not getting recognized enough. Not the recognition, like meaning like the applause, but recognize where it comes to getting the funded for it. We're able to grow and expand to provide more services because, like I said, it's growing the population of the houseless community or anybody that can't afford to get food, and the services are just still like at this. Like there's no growth. The budget doesn't increase for them at all.
And this has been a hard. I think my realization about this is that no matter how much money is spent, it will not end the problem.
No.
Right? We've already thrown. It's been since the 70s, the 80s, the very latest, that we've thrown billions of dollars at poverty.
Yeah.
Right? And we're at loggerheads. We're conflicted in our goals. Right? We want property values. We've promised people who buy houses that the value of their house would go up every year. That's kind of their retirement nest egg. And when they're old enough, they can sell their house and they can move to wherever they want to. And
Right.
That's
the dream.
that's the American dream, right? So that's part of that built-in. So if we have neighborhoods that are impacted by homelessness, and the value of their property is not going up, we have violated or negated our promise.
Yeah.
This is an issue for the people who are in these houses, right? And I think a legitimate issue because there's no other. We didn't give them another pathway forward. We didn't. This was what they invested in. This is what we sold them. This is what they did. They followed all the rules. They showed up every day for work. They did all the stuff. They raised their kids. They did all the stuff right, and it didn't work out.
Yeah.
Right? So we have that.
Yeah.
We have that we're failed in that promise. Along with that, we've given real estate investors market rate real estate investment. We've just let kind of run wild, right? And we've seen the values of things go astronomical. I remember 2008 or 2009 when the stock market crashed, 2008, right?
Yeah.
And it was like at 3,600, and we're like, oh. Somebody said, it's gonna go to 6,000 someday. We're like, no, never gonna go to, it's 30,000 and something now. I don't really pay attention.
Yeah.
But it's insane, and that doesn't reflect the reality of how you and I are trying to buy groceries.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? Somebody's got all that money. It's not us.
Yes.
So
yeah, the proportion is off.
There is wealth being created
for
people who are not our neighbors.
Yeah.
And I keep coming back to what we have to do, what I think we have to do, is activate our neighborhoods.
I like that.
Right?
Yeah.
And you and I, who have access to a lot of services, we can kind of leaders in our neighborhoods and say, hey, that person down the street, instead of calling the cops on that person who just pitched a tent in the park right down the street, why don't we find out their name and find out what they need?
Yeah.
So we can be leaders in that kind of response. That kind of response is essentially free. It costs a little bit of my time, maybe some of my resources, some of my food, maybe however I choose to, but it's not part of the multi-billion-dollar HUD money funnel that comes down and is funding all of these organizations that, I hate to say, they have failed for 40 years. And they live in a world where failing at this level is not looked on as, if I was a private employee and I failed for 40 years, private business, I would not be in business, right?
Yeah,
right?
You're thinking like, I don't know, 10 years you go file for bankrupt.
Right.
My P&L statements are not looking good.
The IRS doesn't even let me count it as a business after 5 years if it keeps losing money. But these organizations just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger and failing because the need is so huge. They fail at greater rates.
Right.
And it costs more money, and they fail harder. And it costs more money, and they fail harder. And they do have little advancements. Some people get housed, right? Which is great. People get housed. But, you may have to correct me. You may have to cut this out later. But I think more people died of homelessness on the streets in LA County than were housed last year.
Oh my God.
I think that is true.
I don't doubt it. Because the first message I got when I got to Skid Row was, I hope you get to see them tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh God, that broke my heart.
Oh,
the reality just started settling in and what I'm actually working with.
Yeah. You know, part of that, I must have told you this story, and it's been part of my recent story. You know, I was working out on the streets, and I hired this kid who had come out of prison and Wardo, and hired him, and for the first time in my professional life, I took somebody under my wing.
Yeah.
An employee.
Yeah.
I took under my wing. And I got him a cell phone, and I got him a cell phone number, and I gave him my old laptop, and I did these, and he showed up for work every day, and he was brilliant. He was so good with our guests. He was creative. He was solution oriented. He just did all the stuff, and he just did it, and he showed up, and he said he wanted to change his life. Right? He'd spent the first 15 years of his life harming people. And I found out eventually he killed 2 people. Right? By the time he was 15 years old, he'd committed murder twice.
Oh my gosh.
And that was the price of safety where he grew up for the gang that took him in. His family was in shambles.
Right.
So the only love he got was from a gang in South LA. He was constantly afraid that they would find him. Right?
Gosh, yeah.
He was trying to leave. And he wanted to change his life, and I believed it, and I got a call. He didn't show up. Well, we lost touch over like 2-3 days. He always was texting me, and on Friday I got my last text from him, like Friday morning, Nothing the rest of the day, nothing Saturday, nothing Sunday. And on Monday, a friend of his wrote to me and said he was killed.
Editing.
Well, I didn't know.
Okay.
I didn't know at the time, right? So I couldn't, and here we were, we're standing in MacArthur Park. It's like 1:30 in the afternoon, it's 100 degrees, it's August 1st or 2nd, something like that. And I, for a minute, my eyes tear up, and I've got people that I need to bring showers, towels to, and I need to clean a toilet, and I got work to do, right?
Yeah.
And I tear up, and I shove it down, and I go and do my work. That ate at me.
Yeah.
And I couldn't equate this lovely, bright, beautiful human being that I had known with not being there anymore.
Yeah.
Maybe the first time in my life I've ever had that kind of that break in, reality. I don't know if there's a term for that, I'm sure, but so I started looking up how did he die, and I should not have done this.
Oh my gosh.
Because I went all the way to the coroner's report, and in the coroner's report I found out what had happened to him is what he feared would happen to him, and I've written about it. It's in my blog. It shattered me.
Yeah.
It just shattered me. Like, I'm done watching people I know die.
Yeah.
Because we're not doing our job well enough. There's not a sense of urgency. There's been emergencies declared for every year that I've been in this business.
Yeah.
There have been emergency.
Yeah.
No sense of emergency
Yeah.
when it comes to how things are executed.
Right.
Maybe a little bit more money, maybe another commission, maybe another study is done, maybe another whatever. But when it comes right down to it, the sense of emergency is people are dying on the street. This one was close to me, and I'm not to take away the deaths of any of the other people that I know, but this one really gutted me.
Yeah.
And I was mad.
Yeah.
I was so angry and sad.
Yeah.
So I started writing. Right, and this was the genesis of the whole Second Grace thing. It was my blog. And then, okay, I'm not gonna fix anything by yelling at people. I'm gonna fix things by offering a solution. That Second Grace was born out of that, right?
Yeah.
But Wardo's death is what broke me from that comfortable place of I'm doing enough.
Yeah. Well, that's a hard one. Are we doing enough? That one eats at me every day.
Yeah.
So that's why having this space with PLK, I'm able to be of service because that eats at me every day, hearing these stories, and then living in these type of communities. There's really good people here, and then there's people that are not Eduardo, but the people that murdered him that are just in that mindset of just like survival mode or whatever consciousness that is. I don't understand that it still exists to this day, and I think there's like a shift happening where people are like, we need to like love each other. We're kind of like all we've got, and I think that we're a greater number of, not a force, but all of us together against the leaders. We're a bigger number than the people out there trying to control us, in a sense. So we need to come together.
I agree with you, and I'm gonna challenge you on something you just said.
Okay.
You started to say we were a greater force, and you backed off from it.
Mm-hmm.
I believe we are a greater force.
Yeah. That
20 of us acting out of love can counter 100 acting out of hatred or self-interest.
Yeah.
Right? This is, and I don't want to be all gooey and, touchy-feely about this. There is an energy here, right? There's an energy here that love multiplies.
Yeah.
Love is a positive. Hatred, self-interest, they're negatives. They subtract, but they don't subtract from the love. They just fade away. The love stays. The actions of our love, the energy of that work stays.
Yeah.
And it stays with the people. And the reason I know that is I've run into people years after I first met them, and they were happy to see me. Because what had transpired between us had been loving and service-oriented, and I had treated them with equity and right. I see on your face.
Love Paul? Who doesn't love Paul?
No. But I see on your face it's that same. You've had that same experience,
yes,
right?
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
And we know, so that resonates. Somebody who's harmed me, I have forgotten them so long ago.
Yeah.
And I just don't even, right? I may see them again and be like, oh, that loser. But there's nothing like that. And I think that power is we magnify that. And the more people we engage, the more people we say, hey, look, I know this is not what you want to do, but you are really talented, whatever you are. You're really talented teacher, educator, bricklayer, bookkeeper, executive. How would you like to participate?
Yep.
What would you like to do?
Yep.
Ask them what they want. You're an executive? Come be on my board.
Yeah.
Help me.
Yeah.
Right? Build my organization like a real organization. Right? Bring what you bring. I'm not asking you to come out there and have warm towels and clean toilets with me.
Yeah.
If you want to, great. Love to have you. Please come. But that may not be your thing, and it may not be your strongest talent. So you do what you do, but help me with that too. Right? And we can engage that, and I think, and I may be out of my mind, I think we can end a huge amount of suffering.
Yes.
We may not end homelessness.
Yeah.
I don't know how practical, again, that goal is, I always say that it's the goal, that it can be done, it can be done. I don't know if I'll live long enough to see it.
Yeah.
But we can relieve enough pain.
Yeah.
And suffering.
Yes.
In the people who we deal with and work with, and move enough people forward if we expand this ground level, neighborhood by neighborhood, Compton to Long Beach to Pasadena to Woodland Hills to Whittier Narrows, where I know there's activity happening in all those places that people like you and me are working.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Bring us all together.
Yeah.
Magnify each other's work and stabilize that so we don't feel we're alone and we don't get so discouraged. You're going to get discouraged.
Yeah.
That you don't flag. You have stood in this space against the hardest odds.
Yeah.
You've just stayed.
Yeah.
Right? You've made this, you've committed to this, and you've stayed here, and you've grown from setting up your table with your laptop and to this.
To a one-woman show.
But it's still a show.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's still
Yeah.
happening, and you're out there doing it, right? And now this new thing you're doing, magnifying the work.
Yeah.
So this is what I think is the solution, is you and I have had the exceptional advantage of having an experience, a life-changing interpersonal experience with other human beings. Right? We have been changed by activities, by interactions we've had with other people. And that light burns, right? That just does not go away.
Yeah.
That is that, so it's right. And that core, we know all sorts of people just like us who burn with that.
Yeah.
Right? And it's finding a way to bring us all together so that we don't feel like we're just railing against or tilting against windmills or whatever. So we feel like we, as a fabric of support, we support each other and we support the people we love.
Right.
And it doesn't matter if we don't get the money from HUD, from the government, from Triple H money or H money or whatever. Right. That doesn't matter. There's an interesting side to the idea of Angelenos voted in H and Triple H initially to tax themselves to end homelessness, right? Mm-hmm. A majority of Angelenos voted in favor of raising a tax on their own personal finances to end homelessness. So what does that say to me? I mean, sadly, it failed so far. But what it says is a majority of Angelenos want to do something.
Yeah.
They are willing to pay. They want to do something. So how do we reach them? With 10 million people here, if I had 10,000 of them, a fraction of a percent, if I had 10,000 of them doing something, one thing every month, the change would be dramatic, huge.
That's where I'm like, I hope to open people's eyes with this, especially this episode, that I'm not, trying to hate on, LA County or anything like that, but you have to recognize we can't really rely on them to fix the whole problem. Yeah. And the organization has been for 30, 50 years. No shame on what they're doing at all. It's necessary, but the problem has grown so much. You need to research other organizations that you want to donate your money to or your time to, because that all matters. We're all trying to end it in the organization realm, and everyone who's watching who doesn't want to see that tent anymore, but just open your eyes and really see the dynamic of this realm, that it's really not just like rainbows and unicorns out there. Like, oh, here, my tax dollars are taking care of it. Unfortunately, they're not taking care of it. Yeah. And that was so disheartening to see when I started out. I'm like, oh, cool, like I'm going to get some funding and I can help, Skid Row out. But when you really get into it, it's just hopeless because they're done. Like with the organizations out there, they don't want to be put it as statistics. They don't want to just put on their clipboard like, hey, I saw somebody today. They really want love. Like these people, their stories. I would love to hear after the next question, like your opinion on like a houseless person, kind of breaking that down, because I've heard so many stories where they're not just a crack addict or anything like that. These are real stories that can happen to you at any day. And like you said, with Eduardo, you kind of had to shut it down when it comes to death. Like these people don't know how to shut it down and they just lose themselves.
Yeah.
And they end up on the streets, and it's so hard to pick yourself up after such a heartbreaking experience. So, but yeah, I think that people just kind of need to understand like the dynamics of the houselessness situation, especially in LA specifically. I don't know in any other countries that it's not just so easy. Like get your tax dollars and they have a budget and they're allocating and they're, you know, buying these homes to house people or providing the services. They're like getting insight to see what's really needed out there. They're not. Like nothing's changing. Yeah. And it's so sad to see because 2020 just was like the hugest like downfall for all of us. And I didn't see the city really doing too much with trying to do anything with that. And like, you know, it just got worse. So, but yeah. That's my little spiel on that. So I do think that, yes, love, I think we just need to really come in and be knowledge part, give my PLK values right now. Yeah. But we really need to get some insight on what's happening. And I hope to kind of like break that barrier. As much as I like to keep my posts positive, I think that it's been so disheartening to see there's no support when it comes to the Prop H. I went to all those meetings and they kind of like laughed at me. I'm like, okay, but I'm doing work that's necessary. I'm not saying it's the solution. Yeah. I'm gonna take someone and change their life today, but it is part of the change. So I would love to hear though how do we break that stigma of homeless people? Like what is something that we can share with someone that they can look at a houseless person differently, and we can break that stigma of like the fearfulness that they have put out there in the news. Yeah. They're constantly putting in the news. Yeah,
and everywhere.
Yeah.
So I mean, a lot of I think the first problem that we have to overcome when helping people understand homelessness is they have to get over their own fear, because I think there's a deep-seated fear that it could happen to me.
Yeah.
Unless, again, you're in that percentage of people who don't live around us that never think in those terms. But even, we live in Los Angeles. A major earthquake could unhouse 1 million of us in a minute, right? Yeah. It just, that could happen. Yeah. So, but we don't think about, and we trust that somewhere out there is an emergency services organization that's going to take care of us.
Yeah, the thought that we're going to be taking care of our own city officials, right?
Right. I have worked around, I mean, I love the Red Cross. I've worked with the Red Cross, great people. Yeah. I don't think they could provide food and water to 1 million people, or 2 million, or 3 million, or whatever, right? I see refugee agencies. One of my favorites is in Minnesota. It's called Alight. They are kind of the agency of choice for whenever there are refugees coming from overseas. So lots of Ukrainians. And Minnesota, where I'm from, has a great tradition of housing people who are coming from, or integrating people from war-torn or economically challenged areas. And since I was growing up, it started with Korean kids when we were in my early teens, to Hmong, Somali, and now Ukrainian. And so all these cultures coming into what was at one point a very homogeneous, mostly Swedish Lutheran and German Catholic, now is everything. Yeah. Right? And that is an example of this successful organization integrating people, outsiders, into a community and making them part of the community and letting the community accept them. Yeah. Now, I know part of their success has been because they work a lot with the religious organizations. And the Lutheran Church in Minnesota, powerhouse, I think it's the only place in the country where it's actually growing. Mostly because we're having more Lutheran babies than Catholic babies or something like that. But amazingly. But the Lutheran Church has been very involved in that, creating social there's a word for this, social organizing, but they've created this
Social
place, a
connection.
safe place.
Yeah.
So othering people who are experiencing homelessness, or I've toyed with this idea, what if I thought the person who loses their housing because of the economy in their home state falls apart,
Right.
and all of a sudden they're looking for a job. It's been going on since, I know for sure since the Civil War, right? When the economies of the South were destroyed and all these people came here looking for work, right? Because there's no work at home. We've been looking at those people as outsiders, and we had all these horrible derisive names for what they were, but they were economic refugees. They were refugees just like refugees from a war.
Yeah.
We seem to be very capable of placing millions of people around the world who are displaced by war. And I'm glad, because as the global, crisis, climate crisis changes, Bangladesh is just going to eventually be underwater fairly soon.
Oh, yeah.
It's very low.
Yeah.
So, right, there's going to be 1 billion people who we just need to rehouse somewhere.
Right.
Right? And that's going to be happening. The equatorial countries are going to get too hot to live in. People will just die there. So those people are going to need to move somewhere. I'm glad that we have organizations in place that are experienced in moving that. And we are at least able to see refugees as having a reason to be here.
Yeah.
We are not that nice with people who lose their housing.
Yeah.
And I think,
Right.
a very, flat, single layer kind of thing. I think it's because even though we will, knee-jerk say we're Christians, though I no longer do, but people will say that, or we're a Christian country. We're not. We're capitalists.
Yeah.
We're a capitalist country. And you want to see who people worship, look at what they spend all their time doing, right?
Spend money.
Spending money, making money.
Yes.
Right? We're capitalists.
Yeah.
So to lose in capitalism, and I think this is Calvinism too, right? To lose in capitalism is to show that God disfavors you. You are, if you're successful, and there's a whole Southern Christian thing of making, I forget, there's actually a specific term for it, but if you make a lot of money, God disfavoring you.
Yeah.
I was at an Amway event once. I was working at an Amway event, sorry. And the woman up on the stage said, "Jesus loves us because we're rich."
Whoa.
And I'm standing there in the audience. I was just managing the wait staff. And I'm like, wow, this is an amazing, that she's screaming in this microphone in front of 5,000 people.
Oh, wow.
Jesus loves us because we're rich. And it was like, oh, that's a little hard.
I'll do the sound effects too.
Right? that's a little, because I'm definitely lower middle class, and so obviously I'm not too highly favored. I'm alive, so grateful for that. But this kind of mentality that we have conflated our religious belief with an economic success metric.
Yeah.
I think that is a huge thing. I think that's a bigger thing than we're ready to admit.
Yeah.
And I think it takes a lot of work in faith communities to unravel people's commitment to that.
Yeah.
But they get an hour and a half every Sunday as opposed to the other 162 hours of the week when people are out there focused on keeping their head above water.
But it's kind of hard right now, these times where we have to work.
I mean,
and right now, like, people aren't going to school because right now it's just whatever money they can pay to pay off their school loans, help pay off the homes for their parents. It's just a lot going on. Stressors around finances is crazy. So I kind of it's just a crazy time right now where I even have to reevaluate how this organization is going to grow and try to commit to helping out our communities. And it still has that underlying message, like what your organization is doing as well. Like, we need to come together as a community, and we need to adapt to these changes instead of picking on each other and putting our stressors even more on each other. Like, the chaos happening in the streets, we don't need to be fighting with each other and inflicting more pain on ourselves. We need to, heal. We need to grow within our family, whatever it takes for you to make sure that you're pouring out love into the world instead of causing more stress.
Right.
That's what you need to work on. Whatever that is for you, take that step, because I don't need you to be angry out on the road or angry in the grocery store. Like, I'm not going to say there's going to be a perfect world, but that's where I think we need to start.
Yes.
So from this amazing conversation that we've had, trying to share insight as much as we can, but it's such a long, layered response. What's a takeaway that we hope that the listeners can learn from this, from our experiences?
That it will take us, all of us, to end homelessness. And once we've succeeded in ending the pain, the suffering of homelessness, we will be empowered to end every social problem that comes afterward.
Right.
Right? We're building a mechanism for repairing our communities from within. Communities used to be independent and be able to do this, and some are better than others, obviously, but that's it to me, is that it's right down to my neighbors, the people who I see when I'm out watering the lawn, that it's them and me, us, as a community, responding to the needs of the community.
Yeah.
And not on one of those apps where we just complain about things. That's useless.
Action.
Right? Action.
Yeah.
Right. It's action. And action, love is a verb, right? Action.
Yeah.
Right? That it's that taking an action. And even if any action is better than no action, as long as you're not throwing rocks at them. But that frees up a flow of things. And once you're used to taking action and you feel a little bit empowered, and that it didn't kill me to go out and do this. Right? Once you start to feel that on a regular basis, and you feel that with all of your neighbors, and you feel safe with each other, and you feel as if you have the same goal, which is to keep your neighborhood safe. I want children to grow up feeling safe. I want women to walk the street feeling safe.
Right.
I want everybody to feel safe where they live.
Right.
Right? What a dream.
What a dream.
Right.
I love that. I think that everyone needs to recognize that we're kind of going insane. We're doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different solution. We need to do something different so that different world can come for us. So I think that's an amazing message to share, and it's literally as easy as just taking care of your own home. Starting there. Whatever we need to start in the home, start there.
Right.
Thank you, Paul. So what's next for you?
So this year, I have a huge, this Better Angels project is an amazing opportunity, and it is daunting, but it's also something that I've been preparing for 10 years to do.
Yay.
And I know that.
Yeah.
I've gotten used to living in a world where the universe keeps providing things for me. And it's all very woo-woo and crazy. I was not this guy.
I love it.
10 years ago, I was not this person. The universe keeps bringing the people into my life who I need in order to live, grow, expand. It's been happening for 10 years. Every time I turn around, the right next person shows up.
Yeah.
And we may only be together for sometimes hours, sometimes years.
Yeah.
Right? But I get the information I need to take the next step.
Yeah.
So this came along. I was talking with them about Second Grace, and we kept talking. I was helping them. They're doing this great outreach app. We were doing this great outreach app. So I was helping them find outreach people and doing this. And then one day, the person I was talking with said, "Why don't you just come work with us? Would you like health insurance?" And I'm like, I would love health insurance, right?
Yes.
It's that, not that that's sensible, but
No.
she was making a joke, I was making a joke. But it was like that chance to then do the next thing.
Yeah.
Because the next thing has just been laid out in front of me. I have all the resources I need. I have their backing. I have the backing of my community.
Yeah.
And so the job is then just to roll it out.
Yeah.
Right? To engage.
Yeah.
So that's...
And help people.
And help people. Continue to help people, and help people help each other.
Yeah.
Build this response community.
Yeah.
Build a loving response, a layer of loving response at the neighborhood level that solves for its own problems.
Yeah.
That sees its own community as being the most important thing, not the individual, the community.
Yeah.
And that works toward creating community everywhere.
I love that.
So that's, I don't want to work past 70. So at some point I'm just going to want to stop. I'm not ready there yet. But
I don't think you will. You're going to always be of service in some way.
Somewhere, I know.
Yeah.
But that's, so I got 10 years. I got 10 years to run at this and do everything I can,
Yeah.
it's great. What a great opportunity.
I love that, Paul.
And they asked me if I would keep Second Grace going. They love Second Grace.
Hey, you better, because
Right?
I use it.
So we
I
got
use
Second
it.
Grace and Better Angels, and I'm on the board of another nonprofit, which is a volunteer organization, unparalleled. We are looking at the 400 volunteers who put on 5 events a week for a few $100,000 a year. Right? The whole thing. It's an amazing organization. Serves just 5 boroughs, 5 neighborhoods in LA. But we need to organize that, take that model, and bring it everywhere.
Yep.
Right? People who are concerned about their neighborhood and acting.
Yep. All the activists out there, please continue doing
Please.
you. But before we end it, though, I want you to share your tags or where can people keep up with Second Grace and you.
So Secondgrace.La.
Okay.
It's the website. It's the Instagram. It's I think our YouTube channel now. I brought on a team to do the media stuff because I'm not that guy, right? So I had to. And he's going crazy. I love it. PaulAsplund.com, which is where my writing, my blogging, and stuff happens. And I am trying to build this volunteer response. If you want to volunteer for anything, reach out to me, right? I'm partnering with all of these great organizations around the city. We just need more human beings.
Yeah.
We need more people to do this, because I know that's the secret.
Yeah.
I know that's what's happening. So I will continue Second Grace and expanding that, and I will continue with PaulAsplund.com stuff, and I'll continue to do stuff like this and talk to my friends whenever they want to talk about how we can fix this stuff.
Yes.
Right? Because this is burning inside of me.
Yeah.
It's time. You tilted to this or tipped to this earlier when you said there's a time. I think the time is happening. We've gone through COVID, I think, tore us apart.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And we're still divided. We're divided politically. But there is a sense, and I feel this, a sense that it is on us to fix things, and the time is now.
Yeah. And
there's an imminent, I won't say existential, but there are really serious consequences to not acting.
Yeah.
And people will blinker themselves to that. But I think more people are starting to see that action is the solution instead of denial. And that's what it will take. Tipping over that, there'll be that. Yeah.
We are the change that we need to see in this world.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Get out there, join Second Grace, join PLK.
And follow PLK and do this stuff. And you're one of my favorite humans. And this is like, for years we have been having this conversation over the phone.
Yeah.
Right? A little bit of whining to each other, a little bit of complaining about how unfair it is that all the hard work that's done at the level we see seems to go for naught, though I don't believe that.
Okay.
It's just that I see it just dissipating, and that is because the problem is becoming overwhelming. Yeah. The influx of people who need our help is overwhelming us. Yeah. Right? We're tiny little organizations, and we're just trying to help the guy next to us, the woman next to us. So, or the person. Sorry, don't the gender people. Showing my boomery. Sorry. But yeah, we're just trying to help, and we'll be out there trying to help.
Yep, always. Paul, it was amazing having you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This has been great.
Thank you guys for watching, and please follow Paul Asplund and Secondgrace.La on every social channel you can find. Have a good one.